We'll go ahead and take People v. Jeffrey Cortman.
Devin Pomeranke, on behalf of defendant Jeffrey Cortman. I am privately retained, not.
And we're here for sentencing on, looks like a charge of possession intent to deliver methamphetamine, habitual third. Guidelines were initially scored at 78 to 195.
I'm informed that Mr. Cortman received his final Social Security. He's going to be canceled on his sentencing to terminate.
Okay, I mean, it was that statement's accurate. I mean, obviously, you know, he's going to lose.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Pomeranke, go ahead with the argument you wish to make.
Your Honor, I don't have any argument just by the way of allocution.
Yes, that's right.
Mr. Cortman has substantially struggled with a problem with substances. Mr. Cortman, for most of his entire life, worked with his hands, both on trades and on vehicles. At this later part in his life, he has become more bound to his chair and limited by his mobility, his energy, and everything else. That's the premise and excuse that he used for himself to continue using and to support his habits, and the urge and the need to do that in order to get what he thought was justifiably more things done. Mr. Cortman has since ran on a road in that regard. He thought this was a way, I think, to sustain himself or support himself, and he understands the gravity of this, and he accepts he's made a substantial mistake. There's not much more I can say besides my last point. Mr. Cortman sits before you, a very fragile man. The guidelines that we have before us today are substantial. Anybody, but especially somebody with potentially limited time, somebody who has sustained some pretty serious health things in the last few years and has some more to look forward to. I would just ask that the court consider the low end of the guidelines, which is still a substantial amount of time for somebody with potentially limited time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cortman, you don't have to say anything to me today, but you're welcome to. Is there anything you want to say today, sir?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. McClellan, recommendations from the...
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Defendant is 64 years old. He has 5 prior felonies, 6 misdemeanors.
Buckle up, guys. Today we're stepping inside a courtroom where an elderly defendant faces sentencing in a serious drug trafficking case. Right from the opening moments, the judge outlines the charges before the defense paints a picture of a man struggling with addiction, failing health, and limited mobility. His attorney asks the court for compassion, arguing that prison could be especially harsh given his condition. Then comes an unexpected moment. The defendant is given a chance to speak, but quietly declines, leaving the courtroom in complete anticipation as the prosecution prepares to make its case.
9th grade education. We're here today, Your Honor, obviously for, you said there was a lot of drugs found in his car and his home. I note in his criminal history, it wasn't too long ago that he was before you first. Looks like there was delivery charges there, firearm charges as well. So here we are today, 5 years later, and we're seeing more of the same, but I think that this one is more serious, Your Honor, both in terms of repeating the offense and in terms of quantity of drugs found. In my discussions with Hunt, I've been told that this is among the largest, if not the largest, drug bust in Prescott history. And defendant made the choices. He made the choice to go downstate and get these drugs. He made the choice to bring them up into our community, into our county, and then further distribute the drugs in our county. And it's an offense, Your Honor, I would submit, that ending at the handing off of the drugs to someone else, you're profiting off the pain of the addictions of others. And I believe then the downstream effects of drugs in our community are horrendous. Increased crime, the impact it has on families, probably the economic impact it has on our community. So I think there's a lot of ancillary effects to drug crimes, and especially when it's at this quantity. I don't think he learned his lesson. Obviously, he did not learn his lesson in 2021 in Sheboygan. and he's amped things up since then. I think the guidelines really do reflect the seriousness and the impact of the crime here, Your Honor. I'm seeing 99 months on the low end. I don't think that properly accounts for what's happened here and what has been happening. I think that 15 years, 20 years is a more appropriate number, Your Honor. And that's within the guidelines as I understand them to be. Your Honor, based on all of this and the repeat nature of the offense and the impact it has, which I submit is tremendous, I would ask the court to fashion a sentence somewhere between 15 to 20 years. Thank you, Your Honor.
Now, the atmosphere changes completely as the prosecutor takes control of the courtroom. Instead of focusing on the defendant's age or health, the prosecution highlights the scale of the operation, describing large amounts of drugs, prior convictions, and what may have been one of the county's biggest drug busts. The prosecutor argues that this wasn't a mistake, but a deliberate business built on addiction, claiming the defendant ignored previous chances to change. By the end of this segment, the prosecution pushes for a sentence between 15 and 20 years, raising the stakes dramatically.
All right, well, this case involves several serious charges with significant guidelines ranges. This case involves the defendant making essentially drug runs downstate for further trafficking, not just that he's going down. We see a lot of times somebody with their own drug problem going downstate, buying some drugs for themselves and a little bit more to boot so that they can sell it to some other friends to continue to support their cycle of use. Those are deliveries, but they're not, they're not really trafficking deliveries. This did involve significant quantities found in Mr. Cortman's vehicle and in his home. Methamphetamine, cocaine, both powder and crack, and various pills. And there's evidence that he was selling that to other people who would in turn sell it to others. So Mr. Cortman was pretty significantly involved in drug trafficking in our community of some very harmful substances that really destroy lives and families. And I had him in 2021 in a Sheboygan drug case, not as serious as this, and I gave him 6 months in jail. I had him in 2022 in Presque County on a drug case, again, not nearly as significant as this, but again, I only gave him 6 months in jail. So, I guess folks listening to that would be perhaps justified in thinking, well, gee, shame on the judge, 6 months didn't do the trick. Trying to give people every opportunity to make changes and better themselves. And Mr. Cortman didn't take those opportunities, but really kind of doubled down on his involvement in the drug trade. Also, he's got a loaded pistol at his home. But for all these reasons, I believe that the guidelines do adequately take into account the seriousness of the circumstances of this offense and this offender. However, his repeated pattern of drug crimes in the 2020s here does not call for a low end of the guideline sentence. I believe that a proportionate sentence, in addition to the standard fines and costs, would be a sentence at about the 2/3 mark of those advisory guidelines. So for those reasons, this is my sentence, Mr. Court.
This is where the judge carefully explains how he reached his decision. Looking back at the defendant's history, he reminds everyone that this wasn't the first time the court had shown leniency. Previous sentences were intentionally lighter, giving the defendant opportunities to rebuild his life instead of spending years behind bars. According to the judge, those chances were wasted, and the criminal activity only became more serious. As he reviews the evidence and the repeated pattern of offenses, it becomes increasingly clear that a much tougher punishment is about to follow.
On count 4, possession with intent to deliver methamphetamine, habitual third, with a guidelines range of 78 to 195 months advisory. I'm going to commit you to the Michigan Department of Corrections for a term of not less than 13 years, nor more than 40 years, exercising my discretion to increase the statutory maximum, maintaining a drug house habitual third. I'm going to commit you to the Michigan Department of Corrections for a term of not less than 2 years, nor more than 4 years, increasing the statutory maximum under the habitual statute. Count 6, felon in possession of a firearm, habitual third, commit you to the Michigan Department of Corrections for a term of not less than 5 years, no more than 10 years. Again, using my discretion to increase the habitual statutory maximum. Count 10, possession with intent to deliver more than 50 grams of cocaine, habitual third. Going to sentence you at the 2/3 mark of the guidelines to 16 years in prison or 193 months. 16 years to 40 years, credit for 381 days served, increasing the statutory maximum from 20 to 40 under the habitual third statute. Count 11, possession intent to deliver oxycodone, habitual third, commit you to prison for 10 years to 40 years. Again, discretionary increase of the statutory maximum for the habitual, credit for 381 days served. Count 12, possession intent to deliver hydrocodone, habitual third, prison 10 years to 40 years. Again, increasing the habitual, under the habitual statute, the statutory maximum. Operative sentence, those are all concurrent. So, Mr. Cortman, the operative sentence is the 16 to 40 years in prison. That is at the 2/3 point in the guidelines, I believe, for the reasons I've stated, that is a proportionate sentence to the circumstances of this offense and this offender. Mr. Cortman, if you want to appeal, you can file an application to the court. Anything further from the people?
Oh, Your Honor.
Anything further from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
The courtroom reaches its defining moment as the judge delivers a final sentence count by count, explaining how each conviction contributes to the overall punishment. After reviewing every charge, he announces the operative sentence of 16 to 40 years in prison, making it clear that the decision reflects both the seriousness of crimes and the defendant's repeated return to drug trafficking despite earlier opportunities. With the hearing coming to an end, the defendant is informed of his right to appeal, closing the case on a powerful and sobering note. If you found this courtroom breakdown informative, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more real courtroom cases and legal
Anybody, but
analysis,
especially somebody
and we'll
with
see you in the
potentially
next video.
limited